1 a.m. live stream. This will be the last of the 1 a.m. live streams this week. Tomorrow, or I guess later on today, 12 hours from now, we will have the Friday 1 p.m. live stream. Those are always going to be the Ask Us Anything streams where we just hang out and chat, talk about Freemasonry. Uh, you know, this morning or the previous stream, I was talking about my upcoming trip to Chicago, Glenview, and Masonic events, and why lodges that go dark over the summer, or Masons who are part of lodges that go dark for several months or stop meeting for several months, should view that time as almost like an off season, the way an athlete would view the off season, not a time to stop working, not a time to stop preparing, but you use that to, like an athlete will use the off season to stay in shape, to exercise, to practice, to study tapes. A Freemason can use that time to practice ritual, to study ritual, to engage in mentorship, as well as lodges can use that time to engage in social activities and special events to grow the fraternity, grow the fellowship therein, as well as grow the bonds of brotherhood and support between the brothers, the families of the brothers, the communities, friends, as well as potentially maintain contact with applicants or potential applicants. The whole point is, especially for Masons in Ontario, don't treat the summer as a chance to stop working in your Masonic activities, either at the individual or lodge level. Both are equally important, and you don't want to come back. You don't want to lose any momentum and come back in September without having lost the momentum you may have gained from January to June. Hello, Courtney. How's it going? I got your card in my wallet, or got your card in my backpack, I should say. I need to mail it tomorrow. I know I've got your address, so you'll be getting it mailed out. Hopefully, it arrives to you shortly. I feel like it won't take that long. I'll get it tracked so I know when it arrives. Also, this is a separate note. I'm going to mention this on my personal page, but my friend, a good friend of mine, who is a really cool dude by the name of Jeff, he was recently and sadly diagnosed with, I guess, stage 4 cancer. There is a GoFundMe for him, which I've shared to my personal social media, and I'm going to share it on my other social media accounts and talk about it in a live stream tomorrow on my personal YouTube channel. Because he has started a GoFundMe asking for support when it comes to needing support to cover the costs while he's receiving treatment and can't work. And I'll share the links to that. If you can't support him, I hope you will do so. Mike says Trump 2028. Well, I mean, I feel like there's some pretty obvious constitutional problems as to why that shouldn't happen. I would say if you get to a Trump 2028, that is when America stops being a republic. That is basically when Caesar. I would say that is when Caesar switches from a republic to an empire, which is probably not a good thing. I don't think the world is ending. I hope not. But I am very happy to see everybody. I hope that you are doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know how it's going, everybody. By the way, Ryan, I don't know. I was going to post something. I was going to check with Michelle. Do you know if the coffee club is taking place on Monday? Because that is technically the long weekend, Monday, August 4th. I'm assuming it is. Well, that seems like cheating. That seems like cheating in order to get, skirt the Constitution. There's a couple tokens in there. There's 2 tokens. One as just a congratulatory note for joining Freemasonry and your EA degree, and one for being part of the Patreon tier. So, all right, I'll double check with Michelle, but I'll make a note on the Essex page just to remind people there is coffee club on Monday. But Mike, this is just my opinion. I certainly hope that you are incorrect. Seems like a pretty terrible thing. But that's a whole can of tuna. But I do hope everybody watching this is doing well. Please, as always, take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Or are his children remotely qualified? I don't really know what they've done that would indicate that they would be, you know, particularly good at that job. But okay. Basically, at this point, it sounds like, Mike, you're looking for almost a dynastic form of government, as opposed to a more democratic one, perhaps. I suppose you can have a dynastic democracies, but they strike me as somewhat rare for a good reason. Well, I got to disagree with you on that, but I do hope you will hit the like and subscribe button nonetheless. It's from the wrestling school I go to. By the way, somebody who was involved in the wrestling school, Can-Am, named Jeff Kavanaugh, he has a GoFundMe. He was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I've had a few people in my family who've been diagnosed with cancer. I know how, um, devastating the diagnosis can be. I've thankfully, never been diagnosed with it personally, but I know from a family perspective or friend perspective how devastating that diagnosis can be. So I'm going to be leaving some links on my different social media accounts. But if you can support the Jeff's GoFundMe by either donating to it or just sharing it yourself, that would be much appreciated. There you go. Ketchup potato chips is a well-known Canadian thing, and I actually really like Texas. I really like, sorry, ketchup chips. So I think it's one of the best things from Canada. So I'm very glad that we are. I'm very glad that we are bringing it to Texas. Thank you, Courtney. Good job. I'm not sure what tachesis is. Tachesis. You should bring them with you on your initiation. You can give them to your brethren as gifts. As you bring little bags of potato chips. It's 1 a.m. here in Canada too right now. It's 1 a.m. In at least Eastern time zone. I know in Winnipeg it's a little bit earlier, other places a little bit later, but it is 1 a.m. here. So yeah, I feel ya. This will be another short stream because I will be, getting ready for my trip tomorrow. A big part of getting ready is I got to get some sleep. I got to pack up. I got to do all that good jazz. So. I'm just trying right now and failing, but I'm trying to actually send to my friend a. Why was there an error with my? Nice. What will you be doing in Toronto? Chicago. There is a whole bunch of events happening there. That's what I was saying. Oftentimes when it comes to Freemasonry, we have this idea of, it goes dark over the summer, which it can. But just because it's going dark over the summer, it doesn't mean that there's not things that lodges can't do, barbecues, special events, ways to support both, the lodge, the community, charitable events, things of that nature. It's really, really special and really great thing to do. Oh. Yeah, I know Naperville. But I mean, when I say I know Naperville, where actually is Naperville? Because I know that location. It's south of Chicago, right? Is it close to Joliet? I'm trying to think where it is because one of the things I'm doing is going to Joliet for a baseball game. Let's see. No, it's closer to um, almost like Schaumburg-esque. I'm gonna figure this out because there is a baseball game happening at the Joliet Baseball Diamond, and there's a Masonic recognition event happening there at the same time. I guess, okay, 36-minute drive to get from one to the other. Basically, I'm going to be starting at the northern part of Chicago. I'll be checking out the Jefferson Masonic Association, Skokie or Morton Grove. Then I got to go to Oak Park. Then I got to go to Joliet. Then I got to make it back to Chicago. So, Mezzi TVT. You can be gay anywhere you want to be, Mezzi VT. If you want to hit the like and subscribe button, that is something you can do here as well. But you just do you, I guess. Um, I will, and always, as I always say, follow me on social media because I will be, posting what I'm up to, posting images, videos, uh, pictures, clips, all that good stuff, celebrating what is happening in the quote unquote Masonic off season and the way that lodges are keeping themselves active during during the quote unquote Masonic off season and keeping their Masonic muscles well flexed. Oh, don't worry, funny Republican. I have been to Chicago dozens, it's got to be over 100 times, like dozens and dozens of times since 2011. Probably on average, at least 4 times a year since 2011 when I first went. So, assume, let's say 4 times a year since 2011, that's 4 times 14. I can do math. 56 times, I guess it would be. Because it's super cheap to go there when you live in Windsor, right? Because it's basically a 5-hour bus trip. You can go for the weekend. Whenever I'm there, it's always either Chicago or Glenview, Illinois are the two places where I visit most frequently. Glenview is about an hour, 40 minutes north of Chicago. But then I also, again, usually it's all the north side stuff. It's Skokie, it's Morton Grove, it's Northern Chicago, Jefferson Masonic Association. Stone Cold Steve Rock, I will answer your question if you hit like and subscribe and hit the heart buttons in the reactions. Then I will answer your math question. I'm taking the Flix bus, and I take the all-night bus, so I arrive like 5:20 in the morning or something. But I don't mind, because that way I get the full day to check out Chicago. So I'm going to have an absolute blast. I'm going to try to hit up 6 different things on the Saturday. Ask the real question. I'll do my best to answer. I can't make any promises. I want to hit a special gym first thing in the morning and take a yoga class. Then I want to go and check out a horror convention that's happening in Rosemont. Then I want to hit up the Morton Grove. It's actually the Loyal Masonic Lodge picnic. Then I want to hit up the Jefferson Masonic Association or the Jeff Jefferson Park Festival, where the Freemasons will have a table set up. Then I want to go to the brisket dinner at Oak Park Masonic Lodge. Then I want to go to the Joliet Slammers baseball game. That will be 6 events. So I love traveling on a bus and train as well. Stone Cold Steve Rock, what's your opinion on the Palestine genocide? Thank you for asking and saying what's your opinion, which I appreciate because I want to make it clear. I'm speaking exclusively for myself and my own opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else or anything Masonically. Beyond the fact that I have concerns with the word genocide because it's a legal term, I think what is happening in Gaza is an absolute tragedy. And it's monstrous on the part of the Israeli government. I I guess I would be considered a Zionist in that I support a two-state solution. I'm also a proud member of a Masonic lodge in Israel, uh, Lodge Holy Land number 50, which is located in Tel Aviv. I firmly believe you need to separate the people of a country from the actions of the government. So, in the same way, as Friendly Republican says, he doesn't like Hamas, but Palestinians are cool, right? You can not like a government or government actions, but still support the people and want the best for the people. And so, in my view, um, I think it's a monstrous situation what's happening and an absolute tragedy. Um, uh, uh, and yeah, beyond that, I again I have nothing against though the people of Israel or Israel as a state, and I'm a proud member of a lodge. But I think the actions that we're seeing are, pick your term, abhorrent, monstrous, um, pick whatever term you want, as in terrible. Whether or not it's a Oh, there are. I mean, to my understanding, the lodge of which I'm a member in Israel, Tel Aviv, has a Muslim or at least a Muslim worshipful master, I believe. So, and again, like I said, in the same way, I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump. But the people who support him in the states, they are not the issue. It's the president himself. I have no issue with the people of Israel. It's the government and the government's decisions, which again, I guess the best word I could use is abhorrent. Um, or is Arab, I should say. The worshipful master of the lodge is Arab. So that's my opinion. I will say, Freemasons, to their credit, the Masonic Charities Foundation has collects donations for the Red Cross, which goes to, my understanding is, it says Gaza slash Israeli relief efforts. I believe after October 7th, they were initially collecting funds to assist Israel, but I believe now the Red Cross is funneling all that money towards Gaza relief efforts as much as they can. So that's my answer, Stone Cold Steve Rock. Take it for whatever it's worth. And again, that's my opinion. There are many different opinions in Freemasonry on what's happening in Gaza and Palestine. I mean, I'll take it. I mean, I've never, I guess I've never met in person any Muslims who've been to Israel. I've spoken to some of them virtually or online through Masonic circles, and they told me they were treated well. I never had any issues, but again, that's not a very big sample size. So I can't speak to the people you spoke with versus the people I spoke with. Um, but I do hope that Freemasonry can provide some type of bridge and support for whenever this is over. Again, as a kind of a two-stater, that's my kind of view on that. I think in the Middle East there needs to be a two-state solution, and I would love one day to see Masonic lodges and Freemasonry, existing in both Israel and a Palestinian state. Housing in Canada, I mean, it is getting rough. Housing prices are going up. Not everywhere, but certainly in Windsor, it feels like they've been going up quite a bit. Um, I know a lot of people are concerned about potentially getting priced out of the housing market. Mr. Keeps on Ticking, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Again, we talked about this earlier when we talked about Freemasonry and social safety nets. A lot of people who are at risk of losing their housing are able to find support through Masonic lodges, if they're a Mason, to cover the cost of mortgage payments or whatever else they need while they try to get back on their feet from some type of calamity. Tree Squirrel says, hi, Canadian flag. Thank you for being here, Tree Squirrel. Please hit the like and subscribe button, by the way, especially if you're new to the stream. Um, why can't America be the 11th province, Skiba? That seems to me as I mean, I think most Americans would prefer to be the 11th province versus being the 51st state. You guys would get different health care. Um, or maybe we should both just stick to our own countries and maintain the bonds of brotherly love and affection between our two countries and Masonic brethren in both countries. As somebody who loves traveling to the States, it would be a lot less special if I was just traveling to either another part of Canada or another part of the States. Probably have to be the 11th, 12th, and 13th province, to be honest. I'm sorry about that, Stephen. I mean, I can try to vouch for you if you'd like. Uh, but I don't think I would have much weight. It's getting kind of interesting at the border lately, even when I cross the border, which I love to do. I think you're always kind of nervous when you're crossing the border. And I do know that, I've talked about this before. There are some Canadians who, even Canadian Masons, who've told me they will not be traveling to the States due to the current kind of political climate they're in, which is fine. Everybody gets, to decide for themselves. I've decided, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, because I will separate the people from the government, even though I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. That doesn't mean I don't love America. I don't love Americans and my American brothers, and I'm still going to support the country, even if I'm annoyed with, let's say, the political situation. I did see that Donald Trump has kind of said he's going to impose a 35% tariff on Canada, but he also said he's not going to include any goods that are currently protected under the United States Mexico Canadian Trade Act, UMUSCA, I think it's called. So it seems like he's trying to walk things back a little bit. Yeah, I agree. This is just me speaking for myself. I'm not a particularly big fan of him either. Why won't this let me work? And I do hope, though, once again, everybody is doing well. Please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know how you're doing, if there's anything else that you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. I personally believe everybody should vote. So you should vote next time, because otherwise then, yeah, you can't complain. I assume you mean London, England, not London, Ontario. But I'm not a fan of presidents calling out any other politicians. I just don't think that's helpful. I don't think that's what they should do. Right? And I love, I've not been to London in a minute, but last time I was there, I liked it. But I mean, once politicians start calling each other out, that becomes a problem, right? You would think what people would want is to, um, you'd think what people would want is to work together and not be calling each other out. That's a Masonic idea, right? There are plenty of, Freemasons with whom I disagree, or in leadership positions with whom I disagree. I may express those disagreements in private, but I'm not going to express that in public because it ultimately doesn't help me work with them. And the whole point of being in government is to work with people and leaders of uh, different groups, different cities, countries, provinces, states. Pick your term, right? I used to know that, and I forget. Nine. Okay, so I just did a quick search because I cheated. So, my opinion, 17, but 15, I guess, are known for sure or confirmed. Uh, the most recent undisputed membership was Gerald Ford. I would count Ronald Reagan and Joe Biden as both being Freemasons as well. Joe Biden was made a Freemason while in office on the last day of his term by Prince Hall, South Carolina. Um, um, and Ronald Reagan was made an honorary Scottish Rite member, which means you have to get considered a Freemason in some ways because you can't be Scottish Rite unless you're Blue Lodge Mason. So, I would say 17, but between 15 and 17, it just depends on how you define it. Because a lot of people don't recognize Joe Biden as being a Mason because the idea of can you make a Mason on site and et cetera, et cetera. To my knowledge, he's not. I'm not heard. You could be both. Um, you could be both. You could be an elk and a Mason, but whether or not he's a Mason is going to depend on how you define it. I have not checked my Patreon yet, but thank you so much for that. Keeps on ticking. I will be sending you. Um, Let me just see. Sending you something then shortly. Let me double check. Make sure you send me a. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Thank you so much. Make sure that when you signed up, included a mailing address somewhere, or you can message me through the Patreon app, or send me an email at. Let me just put the email down here somewhere. info@squareandcompass.ca. So when I've got your email address, I will. When I've got your mailing address, I will make sure to mail you, some correspondence, a very cool commemorative postcard, and a very cool commemorative coin. But thank you so much, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. I truly, truly appreciate it. If I get an address, but the key is I need an address. So Sean, first you need to sign up for a paid Patreon level, and we'll go from there. So it's info@squareandcompass.ca. So info@squareandcompass.ca. Make sure you send me an email with your contact info and your address, and I will get you your commemorative coin and your special correspondence in the mail. And it is truly, truly appreciated. No, I mean, again, it's interesting. So the list of presidents who were Freemasons is, George Washington, James Monroe, Andrew Jackson, James Polk, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, James Garfield, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, William H. Taft, Warren G. Harding, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Lyndon B. Johnson, Gerald Ford, and Gerald Ford was the last, undisputed Mason. Then Ronald Reagan was made an honorary Freemason. Joe Biden was declared a Master Mason at site by Prince Hall, Grand Lodge, South Carolina, on January 19th, 2025, the day before he finished his term of office. So I think that's a fascinating little fact as well. Other interesting facts, Lyndon B. Johnson is the exclusive presidential Freemason who remained at the entered apprentice degree. He did not, advance in the degrees. Theodore Roosevelt received his third degree while in office as vice president. And in fact, the lodge was so full of people wanting to see him be raised to Master Mason that they had to carry him over the crowd to get him into the lodge room. Yes, initially it was exclusively African American or black lodge members, but it it uh, now is not exclusively that. I mean, it was started in response to a lodge in Boston refusing to admit into its membership a black man by the name of Prince Hall. So he then went overseas to, or contacted Ireland and began a lodge under the auspices of Ireland and eventually started Prince Hall Freemasonry to provide a Masonic home for black men who would otherwise be denied admittance into Freemasonry. This was in 18, I can't think of the date now, 1860 something, if I recall correctly. There could be, or sometimes there'll be not Masons, but like, they'll call them like the Order of the Sun, and it'll be modeled on kind of Freemasonry. So, yeah, it's one of those things where oftentimes movies will use, if not call it Freemasonry directly, use, Masonic kind of symbolism and ideas to convey whatever it is, right? To convey whether it be kind of a sense of brotherhood or a sense of ominousness or whatever it might be. Secret societies in general are, oftentimes used in movies as a shorthand way to drive up tension. I don't know why my Mizrim is irregular. At least, again, it's irregular in Canada and the United States, not in Europe. I don't know why. When it comes to, especially when it comes to the rights, to my knowledge, it tends to be what is recognized versus not is, tends to be historical acceptance. Like, I can tell you what makes different jurisdictions regular or irregular based on the, criteria kind of set out in the standards for recognition. But the rights, probably at some point in history, somebody in Memphis Mizrim said something to a Grand Master that pissed them off, and then they just, from there it went forward, right? But I don't know. Um, I don't know, right? I mean, Scottish Rite obviously had the historical connections. A good friend of mine actually did a great presentation once about the history of Scottish Rite and why it was so well connected. So it's kind of a cool thing. To my knowledge, no. I mean, it depends again on jurisdictions and the age you have to be. But I don't know of any jurisdictions where the age is younger than 18. In some, it's older. In Ontario, you need to be at least 21 years of age to join. But if you are under 18 and want to be involved in Freemasonry, a good place to look is DMOLE, which is the Masonic Youth Group for Boys. If I recall correctly, it's aged 11 to 21, but I could be mistaken. But I would say DMOLE, DEMOLAY, would be a great place to start in terms of wanting to be involved in Freemasonry under the age of 18. And DMOLE, it's a great stepping stone and foundation through which you can kind of grow into Freemasonry. As in the executed Grand Master of the Knights Templar. Why is there well, I mean, no reason in particular other than the color of the carpets, right? I mean, the Windsor Masonic Temple was built at a time when Freemasonry was growing rapidly, both in Ontario and in Windsor. A couple years after the Masonic Temple was opened, there was over 100,000 Freemasons in Ontario. For perspective, there's currently approximately 28,000. And as a consequence of that, they needed two lodge rooms because so many lodges meeting. Some had to meet the same nights of the week. And then, Blue Lodge is often kind of correlated with, other than the first 3 degrees, often correlated with Scottish Rite. Red rooms, red is often correlated or considered kind of York Rite. But it's really just the color of the carpets, and as a way to say like, if I have a meeting, I can tell people like I'm meeting in the blue room or I'm meeting in the red room, right? So as opposed to like Lodge Room 1 and Lodge Room 2 or whatever it might be. Um, but I mean, I was made a Mason in the blue room, the blue lodge room, so that is my favorite room in the whole wide world. Though the red room has its niceness as well. Oh, sure, it can happen. Sometimes it can be friendly beef. Like, you'll have, for example, chili cook-offs, and every lodge will, different lodges will select one member to cook the best chili and represent the lodge, and you have competitions and beefs over which lodge has the best chili or baseball games or whatever it is. So they can be fun. Sometimes, I mean, Freemasonry at the end of the day is human, it's humans. And so people can have fights or get, it's usually not like two lodges, but it'll be one individual is in a Masonic lodge. He gets into a fight with another individual in that Masonic lodge. There's ill feelings. So one of them leaves and joins a different Masonic lodge. But now those two Masonic lodges, have the beef. That can happen, unfortunate. It's unfortunate when it does, and we as Freemasons need to do our best to avoid it. But that's always going to be possible. In any organization which is made up of people, which is every organization, you are going to have problems like that, right? There's really nothing that you can do about it, unfortunately, um, other than try to minimize those things as much as possible. I love this shirt as well. Go Can-Am Wrestling. Uh, I concur with that 100%. But in my opinion, the Windsor Masonic Temple is the most beautiful Masonic temple in the world. I'd say I wouldn't think about that stuff yet, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. At the start, honestly, I would just focus on going through the first 2 degrees. Honestly, I never joined, and this is my opinion. I'm speaking exclusively for myself. I don't want to. Other people have gone different approaches, and it's worked for them. But for me, I did not join an independent body until I had already been a worshipful master for 2 years and had just moved out of the immediate past master's chair, so out of the East altogether, because I wanted to focus as much as I could on being the best craft lodge or blue lodge member that I could, and not, so that's just my opinion on that. I think at the start, the focus should be on the craft lodge and why you want to join that. And then from there, you can move on to thinking about appendant bodies. But you don't want to put the cart before the horse. You don't want to rush the process either. Take your time, enjoy yourself. Sometimes one of the worst things that can happen, in my opinion, is somebody gets his 3rd degree and immediately he starts joining a Scottish Rite or York Rite or both. And now he's got, his craft lodge commitments plus his appendant body commitments, and then he burns himself out. You need to be really hesitant about that. Um, but I know York Rite guys. I don't know personally any Mizram guys, but I've spoken to some people in Europe who joined it. They both, I can say both seem like great orders. The York Rite guys are great guys and great friends, and so yeah, we'll see. I would encourage you to join either or both, or but focus at the start if you do plan to join on your craft lodge or your first 3 degrees, and how you can contribute as much as possible to those 3 degrees and to the lodge. OG glitch. I don't know anything about Skulls 322. I'm not sure to what you are referring. Please, by the way, hit the like and subscribe button. OG, I think you're new to the stream. But what is Skulls 322? I'm going to look that up on Google. Skull and Bones. Okay, so that's the fraternity or the secret society that's at Harvard or Yale, right? That supposedly George W. Bush was a member of. I mean, beyond the fact that I was told that George W. Bush was a member of it and that it is a fraternity that's on college campuses, Yale campus for sure. I don't know if any other Ivy League campuses. Um, I mean, I have no real opinion on it one way or the other. I think when it comes to I believe plenty of sand in the sandbox. So anybody who wants to join any secret society, call it whatever you want, fraternity, community group, civic group, I'm fine with. I think those things strengthen the community, it strengthens the world, and if somebody finds a sense of purpose through Skull and Bones, then that's fine. No different than Knights of Columbus or Freemasonry. Again, having said that, I know very little about Skull and Bones in terms of kind of what their rituals look like or what their structure looks like. I do get concerns about sometimes fraternities on college campuses and things like hazing rituals, which I don't agree with. And I worry sometimes those things exist in college fraternal settings. But so long as they're not engaging in those things, then I have no issue with it. Disabled veteran, well, I care. And if I care, hopefully other people care. And you can show you care by hitting the like and subscribe button. No, they're not allied with the Freemasons, at least not to my knowledge, other than, there's no doubt that I'm sure historically, right, there have been Freemasons who have been both members of Skull and Bones at Yale University and then joined Masonic lodges after the fact. Um, it would not shock me at all because Freemasonry was so ubiquitous in America, including in and around Yale and other cities, that you would have Skull and Bones members then becoming Freemasons, or Freemasons looking to potentially encourage members of Skull and Bones to join Freemasonry after they graduate to um, maintain kind of their involvement in fraternal organizations and secret societies. But I've not heard of any formal alliances or formal recognitions, not in the same way you have, for example, with Freemasonry and the Odd Fellows, which is much more of a kind of established relationship. Well, I mean, if you were to decide to join irregular Mizram, you could do that, and that's, plenty of sand in the sandbox. You're more than welcome to. What I would say, though, is keep in mind, if you were to join Freemasonry, I know it would be expensive and hard to do, but you could join, Freemasonry in North America and then look at potentially joining with the lodge or filling with the lodge in Europe and then joining Mizram through that potentially, which is possible to do, right? I'm a member of a lodge in Tel Aviv, Israel, affiliate member. I don't know if Israel recognizes Mizram, but Russia does, for example. And they have recognition with most Grand Lodges in United States and in Canada. No, Stephen. I've not heard of any. I've not heard of any Masonic lodge which welcomes dancing girls for extracurricular activities. If I am taking dancing girls to mean what I think it means, that's not to say some Masons have not, after lodge meetings, found themselves in some bars where there may be some dancing girls. However, I will say Freemasons have had banquets and special events where they've had Irish dancers come in or Celtic dancers. I once was told of a Masonic lodge where there was belly dancing after, but I've never been to one where such a thing took place. I will say I once went to a lodge in Nogales, Mexico, and you had a Masonic lodge on one side of the street, and across the street you had a club where there were dancing girls at that club. And I thought to myself, my two favorite things next to each other. I'd probably never leave the lodge. Well, because I mean, it depends if in your city Mizram is recognized as an independent body, right? If it's not, it's one of those things where you may potentially be able to get two for one. But if you do decide you want to focus on Mizram, then I say more power to you. Like I said, I don't know enough about the order to say a ton about it, other than I've known some Mizram guys, and they're all great people. And talk to the lodge. They may there are plenty of Freemasons who also join Mizram and just don't talk about it. Kind of in the same way, you have plenty of members of the Catholic Church who are also Freemasons and just don't discuss it while in Catholic Church, right? Usually, people try to figure out how to make things work, which should be the goal, right? I'm not suggesting that it's always the case or that, well, but talk to, what I'd say is find and talk to a Masonic lodge and express that you do have an interest in Mizram and go from there and see what the lodge says. That's an interesting question, Stephen. Obviously, I'd want to say no, but how do I answer that question? Because that's a tough question to answer. I don't know, Stephen, if you've ever watched this television show called The Bear, which is right now probably my favorite TV show of the last 10 years. It's an incredible television show. It's about cooks and chefs and kind of their personal struggles, and how their time in the kitchen both allows them to deal with those personal struggles as well as often exacerbating those struggles. But there is this, um, scene in this episode called Honeydew, where these two characters are talking. One of them is kind of a newer chef who's just starting his journey, and the other one's a chef who's been cooking for a while. Um, and he's talking about like all the sacrifices and the time and the effort that he put into being a chef, and the dedication it took to get to the place where he was as good as he was, and how much work it is and how hard it is. And the character asks him, was it worth it? And the other character says, I don't know, ask me tomorrow. I would be lying if I said there weren't plenty of times where I was absolutely exhausted being a Freemason, where I dedicated so much time and effort and energy to it, going without sleep, dealing with, fights with Masonic brothers. Um, and whether or not I regretted it, I definitely found myself burnt out and exhausted and tired. But even in those moments, I think ultimately I wouldn't use the term regret, because I felt that I was contributing to something that was making the world a better place. And that's kind of what pushed me through, right? And that is going to be a unique situation. A lot of Masons will join and they'll never regret being a Freemason because they don't dedicate themselves to it the way I did or some of my friends did, right? Who kind of experienced those same feelings. They'll show up once a month, once every 2 months, maybe once a year. They'll, sit down for a dinner. They'll enjoy the food. They'll hang out with brothers. They'll talk about how great it is. And then they'll kind of go away. So they'll not have cause to feel those kind of burnout and regret and frustrations because they're in and out. I remember, I think I've told this story before, but this one time I was, uh, I had been at a Masonic event or something. I'd basically been at the Masonic Lodge or Masonic Building 14 days in a row. And it was the last day. It was the 14th day, and I was, finally tomorrow, the next day, I wasn't going to be there. But I was as burned out and tired and just did not want to be there as you can imagine. And this guy came. He was a member of the lodge. Uh, we had not seen him for years. And he came in and he gave this whole thing about how much he loves Freemasonry and he loved being there and how wonderful it was to be back and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I was so tired and so exhausted, I just did not want to hear it because the reason he felt that way is because he'd never dedicated himself. It's easy to feel that way when you never sacrifice anything for it, right? When you actually have to make significant sacrifices for the thing, you're going to perhaps have some different feelings towards it. So I wouldn't use the term regret, Stephen, but I felt burned out. I felt exhausted. I felt tired, and wondered whether the effort I was putting in was worth it. I guess what I'll say is when I have moments like that, I always remember the ways in which Freemasonry makes the world a better place, the way in which Freemasonry has helped me in the past and helps others, and that usually allows me to push through the burnout and once again find the things about Freemasonry that I enjoy the most. And at the end of the day, everybody goes through that, right? Like, look at professional wrestling. How many professional wrestlers have, at the peaks of their career, walked away, stepped away for months or for years or for decades because they just were so burnt out they needed to step back and take a break. It happened with Shawn Michaels, happened with CM Punk, happened with Hulk Hogan. Um, it's one of those things where it's just kind of the nature of it. If you love something and you dedicate yourself to being the best at something, you dedicate yourself to making that thing work. Um, that's going to come with possibly regrets or questions about whether it was worth it or not, and you just have to decide for yourself. And some Masons never feel that way because they never fully dedicate themselves to it. But if whether it's cooking, wrestling, sports, if you truly dedicate yourself, music, being a musician, if you truly dedicate yourself to being the best at it, you are going to struggle to know whether it's worth it or not. And that's just the price you pay for trying to be great at something. And it's a price a lot of people are not themselves willing to pay. Mr. Keeps on Ticking, sorry for missing it. Normally, you do not get all of your degrees at once. Normally, you get a first degree, you have to then wait a minimum of 30 days. Then you get a second degree, another 30 days, then you get a third degree. And in that time, and the 30-day thing is a minimum, there's usually not a maximum, or the maximum is for 1 year. Now, there are some jurisdictions which are starting a different thing where they're doing all the degrees in one day. I'm not a fan of that myself. Um, in Ontario, for example, before you move up to your second degree and your third degree, you have to memorize different pieces of ritual, memorize the answers to certain questions, and then present those answers in open lodge. So, um, to my understanding, primarily jurisdictions that are conferring all three degrees in one day are doing so primarily for active service members who might be on military deployment and need to get their 3 degrees before they travel overseas. Hopefully, thank you, Stephen, for respecting that. I truly appreciate that. Uh, if so, I mean, hopefully not. It shouldn't be the case. Again, Freemasonry is people. People are uh, valuable or whatever it is, but there should not be any connection between how quickly you move through the degrees and financial donations. Most jurisdictions have a minimum time frame of you need to wait at least 30 days between degrees. Um, and there are certain things you have to do. You have to be able to answer certain questions from memory. You have to be able to recite certain things from memory. So making a donation will not affect that at all. So, I mean, again, I'm sure some Mason at some point has tried to think of some way to collect a donation for the lodge in exchange for degrees, but that should not happen. And if it were to be happening, and a Grand Lodge were to find out about it, I'm sure that lodge's charter would be removed, and they would not be able to be Freemasons anymore. I would assume. But no, advancing through degrees is not based on donations. It's based on minimum time frames and your ability to memorize and answer questions about the craft. And basically, what that comes down to is mentorship and how well you are mentored and how many people are mentoring you. Let's give it a few more minutes. Let's hit that. And Stephen, you are welcome. I try to be honest as much as I can. If you are just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. We're going to give it a few more minutes. Then we'll probably end this stream. By the way, I have my interview with Core from Black Raven Meditation coming out on Sunday at 6 p.m. So make sure you tune in for that. There is not, right, Stephen? That is one of, in my opinion, the biggest misconceptions. So I'm glad you asked that question because it gives me a chance to be able to answer it. That is probably, in my opinion, the biggest misconception about Freemasonry. A lot of people think there's like a global, not necessarily one Mason overseeing things, but like a single entity or organization that oversees Freemasonry on a global level, which is not the case, right? Um, Freemasonry is jurisdictional. So you have grand masters, but those grand masters have authority exclusively within their jurisdiction. So, for example, you have the Grand Master of Texas, who has jurisdiction over Masons who are from Texas or who live in Texas and attend lodges in Texas. He cannot make any rules for lodges in California. In the same way, you have the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of California. He can make rules for California, but he doesn't oversee Freemasonry anywhere else. In the States, you have the 50 states with 50 different jurisdictions. Then you also have Prince Hall. Then you also have Canadian jurisdictions. There's 10 of those, plus Prince Hall. Then you have Grand Lodge of England, Grand Lodge of Israel, Grand Lodge of Russia. In some places, the country itself has a governing Masonic body, and in some cases, it's the states. So, but yeah, there is no single either Mason or no single governing Masonic body that governs Freemasonry across the world. It's different jurisdictions. And one thing you find is with conspiracy theorists, they often tend to argue that, they'll say like, one of the reasons they have a conspiracy theory is because they will say, Masons do X, Masons do Y, not recognizing that different Masons across the world have different leadership and different rites and different ceremonies. So that is something you want to always keep in mind. No worries. I think we will, though, be ending this stream, though I've appreciated everybody joining so far. Because I do have to get some sleep. Tomorrow there'll be a 1 p.m. stream. It's just going to be a hangout stream, and we're just going to chat amongst ourselves. As always, if you're not done so yet, please take a moment to join my Patreon. You can join it for free, or you can, spend a couple bucks per month or whatever it might be. It's patreon.com/square and compass. I am preparing for another 24-hour stream. I don't know when it will be, but as soon as I know, I will let you guys know. It'll be mid-August, some point in time. I'll just give it one more minute. I'm just going to see if anybody else does decide they want to jump on, just to say hello. But I do think, like I said, because I do have to get, packed for tomorrow, so. And Mr. Keeps on Ticking is, as he said, he joined the Patreon, so he'll be getting some correspondence from me shortly. Once again, as long as I've got his contact info, either you can send me an email, info@squareandcompass.ca, or if he included it when he was signing up. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody. Um, all right, I'm going to end the stream. I hope everybody has a great, great night. Thank you again, everybody, for joining. I may see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. If not, like I said, follow me on social media so you'll see everything I'm up to in the coming days in Chicago. All right, have a great night. Bye for now.